Hi, my name is Mia, and I'll be covering the beginning portion of Piaget's cognitive developmental theory. My focus is on why Piaget matters, how his theory developed, and the sensorimotor foundations of cognition. This section sets the groundwork for understanding how later stages of thinking emerge. Jean Piaget was one of the most influential developmental psychologists, but he didn't originally set out to study children. He showed scientific talent very early, publishing research at age 10. He was strongly influenced by his father's systematic thinking, and he often turned to solitary research as a way to cope with family tension. Around age 15, Piaget had an intellectual crisis when he realized his philosophical and religious beliefs lacked a scientific foundation. This led him to develop what he called genetic epistemology, the study of how knowledge develops over time. This background is important because Piaget wasn't just interested in what children know, but how knowledge itself comes into being. Piaget's major breakthrough happened while working at the Binet lab in Paris, where he helped develop intelligence tests. What caught his attention wasn't children's correct answers, it was their wrong answers. He noticed these mistakes followed consistent patterns, which led him to argue that children don't think less than adults, they think differently. Because of this, Piaget rejected rigid standardized testing and instead used clinical interviews and naturalistic observation. He allowed children to explain their thinking in their own words. Although his methods were criticized for lacking standardization in statistics, Piaget valued depth and rich examples, believing that mistakes reveal how thinking is structured. Piaget proposed that cognitive development unfolds across four invariant stages: sensorimotor, pre-operational, concrete operations, and formal operations. While children may move through these stages at different speeds, Piaget believed they always occur in the same order. A key principle of his theory is that children actively construct knowledge. Development is not simply the result of biological maturation or adult teaching. Instead, children build understanding through interaction with their environment. This active construction idea is central to everything Piaget proposed. Piaget explained developmental change through three processes: assimilation, accommodation, and organization. Assimilation occurs when new experiences are fit into existing mental structures. Accommodation happens when those structures must change to handle new information. Organization involves coordinating these structures into more complex systems. For example, a baby may initially try to suck everything. Over time, the baby adjusts and coordinates looking and grasping, building more effective ways to interact with objects. These processes explain how children move from one stage of thinking to the next. The sensorimotor period spans from birth to about age 2. During this time, cognition begins entirely through physical action. Early schemes are based on reflexes, like sucking and grasping, but gradually become intentional and goal-directed. Piaget divided this period into 6 substages, ranging from reflexive behavior to experimentation and, eventually, the beginnings of internal thought. The major shift here is from simply acting on the world to starting to mentally represent it. One of the most important developments during the sensorimotor period is object permanence, understanding that objects continue to exist even when they are out of sight. Early on, babies behave as though out of sight means out of mind. Over time, they begin finding partially hidden objects, then fully hidden ones. A key limitation Piaget identified is the A not B error, where infants search for an object where it was previously found rather than where it was just hidden. By the end of the sensorimotor period, infants can track invisible displacements. At this point, objects are understood as permanent, and the child begins to see themselves as one object among many in a stable world. A more recent peer-reviewed study by Baillargeon and colleagues in 2011 builds on Piaget's work. Piaget argued that infants develop object permanence through action. Baillargeon's research suggests that infants as young as 3 to 5 months show surprise when physical laws are violated, using looking time methods. This suggests infants may have early mental representations before they have the motor ability to demonstrate them. Importantly, this challenges the timing of Piaget's claims, not the overall structure of his theory. Culturally, this research highlights that how we measure cognition matters. Skills may appear earlier or later depending on experience and context, supporting culturally responsive assessment rather than a deficit model. Piaget argued thinking develops through action, shaping later cognitive stages.